We're showing a short snippet here under New Zealand's fair dealing laws. It's to support the real stuff my partner mentions in the following video. And yeah, this actually happened. So stick around because we're gonna unpack the full story here. Alright, and we're back.
And we're back.
So, kia ora, welcome back, or if it's your first time, welcome. So this is Smack of Truth, a series where we talk about raw stuff that shaped us as people. Mainly you.
Mainly
in this
me.
series.
In the series, yes.
So this will be episode 2 of your series of growing up in a cult. This is called After the Cult. In episode 1, we took you through the lead up, the entire lead up. How you had a stillborn brother, fractured home, and how by the age of 4, you found yourself growing up inside of a tight-knit religious group that saw the entire outside world as evil. Is that the gist of it?
Pretty much.
In today's conversation, we're focusing on what happened after he left. It was around the age of 9 or 10 that life just suddenly changed.
Say between 9 and 11.
Yeah.
But mostly 9, 10, I think.
The years that followed were kind of a blur. It was a bit of a blur of movement, change, and questions with no answers, basically.
Well, yes and no. Those
Yeah.
years were... We didn't have friends. We only had each other and one other family that we were moving around with that was extremely religious as well. So we were sort of still
In and out of...
in the religious circle.
But out in the real world at the same time.
In the real world. So we got to see more than just
What
the
it
farm.
was. But
still just inside of a religious
it's
circle.
only now that at the age of 31, he's
30?
turning 31.
I'm 21, thank you very much.
He's an adult in therapy now and finally unpacking what actually went on. Just want to put up a little plug, huge mickey to the Olive Leaf Network here in Aotearoa. They help support people leaving coercive religious environments here. Their info is going to be in our description of this video. It's also in the last video with their link onto the page. So if you know anyone that's affected by this, or if you yourself are affected, you don't have to be recently left. It can be something that you've only just come to realize in the last few years that maybe something actually wasn't quite right with how you were treated in that group or whatever went on. And you might just need someone to talk to or support you with that. They're perfect. You can just go ahead and get in contact with them through their website. So, shall we dive in? Straight into the deep end. We're going straight into him leaving as a child. So
I don't exactly remember leaving.
You don't remember much.
Right.
That's the point. He doesn't actually remember much. We did cover this in the last video. A common complex that a lot of survivors of trauma situations end up with is the fact that they actually block out a lot of their memories as a coping mechanism.
This actually helps me remember a lot because you start talking and then it sort of like you get verbal diarrhea and then you're just like, wait, that actually happened.
So, what I'm going to start with is, what do you remember about life suddenly changing at around age 9 or 10 when you actually left? What do you actually remember about the day that you left?
I don't. So I vaguely remember packing up what we could carry. I vaguely remember getting in a van and there was a few people there and I knew we were leaving. Me and my brother knew we were leaving. My mum knew we were leaving. I don't. So now I've only just found this out in the last year that people around us that were there when we left actually didn't know that we were leaving. So apparently Mum stole the van and took off. Whether or not she said she was going to go visit someone and be back that afternoon, I don't know.
I might circle back to that soon. So, at that time then, even though you don't remember much about it, did it feel like a change, or was it just kind of like another step? Like, that was just another, kind of just rolling with the punches. Like, this is what happens. We go somewhere and we just kind of move on after a while kind of thing. Was that it?
So it all happened really suddenly. Leading up to that, I didn't know we were leaving until the week max that we were leaving. I think it might have even been a day or two. So that kind of just dropped us off into the deep end of like, there's an outside world.
And we're going back into it.
And we're going to be in it. And that kind of, it was almost like a traumatic thing where it's all a blur. The place that we went to was up in Whangarei. We got a house up there. It was $50 a week on a beach and a bay with an awesome view. It was a 2-story house. It was beautiful. It was awesome. Until February this year, I actually thought that was a year or two after we left. That's how messed up it had been. Like, there's a whole 2 years there that got that mixed up that I thought that was a year or two after we left.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we were only there for 4 to 6 months max, and then we moved on.
So I guess you kind of already answered it. But so, did your mum actually explain to you guys what was going on? Even if it was just inside, when you were inside the van leaving, like, did your mum actually explain anything to you at that point? To you guys?
She didn't explain as
because like, so when I say you guys as well, just in case you didn't see our first video, go back and watch it. It'll make sense. No.
Go back and watch it.
When I'm saying you guys and, like, you know, referencing, I'm talking about my partner and his mum and his older brother. So just for reference.
So I remember her saying we were leaving and then we were gone. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know anything.
Was that?
And then we were gone.
Oh. So that was like that. Would you have almost said that? Did you feel scared, or was it just kind of like, oh, we're going on an adventure?
Basically, oh, we're going on an adventure. This is exciting. I didn't realize it at the time, but now that I look back at it, it felt like the rug got pulled out from underneath me, and everything that I knew around me just kind of went poof.
Yeah.
I didn't see it at the time. I didn't think about it at the time, but that's why everything kind of just turned into a blur for the next few years, really. That was...
So, like, what did leaving actually mean to you then, back then, if anything? Like,
going on an adventure. Like, picture The Hobbit, when Bilbo runs out of the Shire with the whole... It was gypsy lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, we travelled a lot. A freaking lot. We weren't in contact with family at all. We were still very estranged from our family. At this point, I had no idea where my dad was. We had like one other family. Actually, we had a few different families that we did go visit. They were all homeschoolers, Christian, and they're Christian, same circle, same sort of circle thing that we'd go visit. There was a time that we stayed in Aotearoa in a house there for a while. don't know how long. Maybe that was right after the Whangarei house. It's all really mixed up.
No, that's alright. So, during this time, were you getting educated?
Maybe.
Was it still with the same curriculum that was getting used in
It would have
the
been,
church?
Yeah, because you're still in that circle, so yeah, it would have been. We went to Martin quite a bit, a few times.
Where the other community is?
Yes. They had a massive event there once a year or something where they all gathered. We went to that at least once, maybe twice. I don't know if she was looking to move into that community or what, but that whole situation was really weird.
So it's fair to say that from the time you left, you actually don't remember the first year or two properly after leaving that place.
2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we were to jump forward just a little bit then. So 2 to 3 years. So we'll put you at about 12, almost turning 13 then. What was going on then? Were you still with your mum?
We were with Mum.
Yeah.
We were down. I remember this part clearly. We were heading to Martin.
Yeah.
To the community there for one of their big meetings, and somebody got in contact with my mum and let her know that a package had arrived at Drury for us. We picked the package up and it was from my dad. And it was a phone for me and a phone for my brother, like cell phone. Like a Nokia 1110 or something. One of those really old school brick phones. I loved it. It was great. That was my first ever cell phone. I had no idea how to use it. I didn't even know how to put a battery into it. But the other family that we were traveling with did, so they helped us out with it. And my dad put his phone number in it. And that's how we got in contact with my dad.
Wow.
When we went down to Martin, we charged our phones and called him. And we got back in contact with him. Found out he was living in Tauranga.
So did you get to go and see your dad after that then?
Yeah, we went there like a week or two after that. Yeah. We went up to Tauranga. We met him there, and as soon as we got there, Mum went, "Oh cool, you're with your dad now." About a week later she was gone.
She just left you there?
Yep. Me and my brother.
Were you happy with that though?
I have my dad. Not really. It was once again the rug getting pulled out from underneath you, you know?
Yeah, so it's kind of almost a constant thing of just like as you're getting settled somewhere, it's just kind of like, oh, we're moving again, or like this is happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like that for a few years when we were in that, while we were travelling around and stuff. There was a few, like, everyone you meet and every friend you make, you're going to be leaving in the next week, that's it. You're not going to have any contact with them.
So when you got dropped off at your dad's, you're all about, what, 12, almost 13 then?
I would have been 12.
So...
Fresh 12 maybe, but 12.
Was your dad as highly religious as your mum was?
Is drinking alcohol and smoking drugs religious?
He
was
so
religious.
Is it safe to say it's almost the opposite with as your mum
so.
when it comes to that kind
so
of thing?
His religion was 4 pack of 440 woodies every night. That was his religion. So
does that mean that he sent you straight into the public schooling system then, since you'd never been into the public schooling system?
no. I was too young to go to high school, and I was halfway through the last year of intermediate, so there was no point. So we just waited till I was old enough to go to high school. Then it was straight into the public schooling system. So I kind of had a year off of doing nothing. Or 6 months or a year. But in that time, Mum came back from her wanders of wherever the fuck she went while she didn't have kids. Got back with my dad. They reconciled their marriage.
Oh.
And I was going, yay, I have a family again. My life is going to be great. No!
Oh.
There goes that rug again.
Sorry. I really shouldn't laugh, but like, how did that happen? What happened?
Well, my mum cheated on my dad cheated on my mum, they drugged each other, they did things, bad things happened, and then my mum left again.
So that was the end of their relationship. Completely.
Relationship.
And they never saw each other again from that point.
No.
What?
This is a whole different story.
And this is all within like
This is all within 6 months.
Yeah, but that point there was like when you're...
So I left Drury about 9 to 10 years old.
Yeah.
Ish, somewhere around there.
And then you're 12 years old at this point.
Yep, at this point I'm 12 years old. So this is between 3 years' time. Max. I'd made friends, I'd lost friends, been to different places, I've been all over the North Island. Without knowing the North Island existed for a little while there. And yeah, at this point I'm still estranged from my whole family outside of my brother and my mum. I was estranged from my whole family outside of my mum and my brother. And then within a month of that I was estranged from my mother too.
So the rug just got pulled straight back out again. Everything that you knew.
So...
And then your mum comes back and then gets back together with your dad.
Remembering at this point...
Yeah.
I don't know what drugs are.
Yeah. Because you've never seen anything like that. Because all you've seen is
I've never seen
Christians
alcohol.
with good intentions and then evil intentions as well on the outside world. Everything on the outside world was evil.
Yeah. But the Christians don't talk about drugs. They don't talk about anything that happens outside of there. Namely because they don't expect you to run into that sort of thing. But when you do, you don't know what it is.
So when you saw your mum come back again after her month away, you witnessed her get back with your dad again. So and you thought your whole family was going to be back together again.
Well, it was for a little while there.
Yeah.
I had everything I'd ever wanted.
Yeah.
I had a family. And no, I didn't! And yeah, that spiraled again very quickly. Very, very quickly. So this was all before I hit high school. So this is probably in the span of about 6 months.
From the 6 months that you'd actually been dropped off at your dad's within that
from
the day you got dropped off at your dad's.
Well, from getting in contact with him. This is all within 6 months. So within 6 months, I found my dad, I had my family, and then my mum's gone. And I'm left there with my dad.
Yeah.
That was constantly drunk and drugged out, that I found out later on.
And then you went into the public schooling system. So what happened with that?
I made lots of friends and we lived happily ever. No, I didn't.
So, that's a two-part question for me as well. So, I want to know, how did you feel when you entered into the public system? But also, I want to know what shocked you the most, like, you know, from about the mainstream schooling system after living such a different and sheltered lifestyle. Like, what was the most, like, do you remember us standing there it's almost like a, or a what the fuck moment, you know, kind of like, what is this? Like, did you feel like almost like you were going into an animal's den kind of thing? Or were you just kind of like, wow, this is such a cool adventure?
More like the second. More like, oh wow, this is such a cool adventure. But also deathly terrified at the same time.
But what was your shock factor moment? Because surely coming from such a different lifestyle and only seeing like people that were like you in your school, you go to such a different thing.
My shock factor moment was going into the public school and finding out that everything wasn't revolved around Israel, and there was other countries in the world and other things mattered other than Israel.
Can you give an example of this? Because obviously, because you're my partner and you've shared some of these stuff with me, but like just an example of things you learned. Because like, for example, because we're in New Zealand, we're in Aotearoa, obviously, and I'm Māori, and I was born in Australia, but I still knew about the treaty. I still knew about everything that went on over here. I knew about all the land wars and everything. Like, can you explain like something that like that was different that you learned?
I never learned about. Well, I'd learned about the treaty. I'd learned certain things about the land wars and stuff, but it's not the same things that you learned. I didn't learn about that side of things in high school because you're supposed to learn about all that in primary school. You should know all of that stuff before you hit high school. You hit high school, you should know everything that you learned in primary school. You know it when you hit high school. I didn't learn any of that in primary school. I hit high school and everything that I had learned in the previous 12 years of my life meant nothing.
Because like, and we're going to drop some examples of the curriculum that he actually did learn while he was there. Just like a couple of examples of the worksheets because...
So, I knew the basics of certain things. I grew up being taught that... So, I got taught that dinosaurs weren't real. Essentially. The world was 4,000 years old. And if you didn't know the answer to something, it's because God wants it to be that way.
And I keep saying the treaty because I really want you to elaborate to them on what you learnt about that. Because for me, that was almost a shock factor of like, yeah, this curriculum is just not correct. These people are not correct. Like...
The curriculum's America-based, so there's not much in there about that sort of thing.
But just the fact that you learnt that as a young age.
What I knew about the curriculum, about the treaty and stuff, whether it came from somebody else or from that curriculum, I do not 100% know. But essentially what I knew was that in 1840... a missionary came over, made friends with the Māori, and that was basically the first contact and the main contact of Pākehā Māori, and when they first came over here, and that they were savages that needed saving. They then signed a treaty that the Pākehā were allowed to move in here and build and have houses and stuff. They bought land off the Māori to live on, and then the Māori didn't like that. There was misunderstanding. There was a war. The war ended. They all sung happily Kubi Doobies and danced around the flagpole together, and that was the end of that, and they were all happy after that.
Don't worry, he knows it's not real now.
Yeah, I know it's not real now.
Don't worry. But there's even just little things. So, like, yeah, they had the American standardized version of what he learned. And, like, I know I might be taking over a little bit here. But when I first started dating him, my little pet peeve, and I just thought it was just, like, a quirk or something that he had. And it was just the way that he did it. So I was like, people isn't spelt with an A. It actually has an O in it. It's spelled People. And he looked at me and was like, no, that's how Americans spell it. We spell it the New Zealand way. And I was just almost like... And this debate, no shit, went on for about 4, maybe 5 years of our relationship.
It was a long time.
And he looked at me and was like, no, because I got taught this. Like, my mum helped me learn this. She taught me this with when we were homeschooling. So, me being me, when we go and see his mum, we ask. And then suddenly it's, no, I never taught you how to spell it like that. That's incorrect. Of course it's got an O in it. And it's just little things like that where it's just like, well, if he genuinely believed it that much, that that's how it was spelled, obviously it's been learnt from somewhere.
25 years of it.
Like, that's obviously a learnt behaviour. Like how everyone learns how to spell things. He's learnt how to spell that from somewhere. And it's incorrect. And there's just so many little things that he's learnt that was incorrect. And then getting thrown into a public schooling system like that. And whether it was because he did move around quite a bit from different schools and they didn't have enough time to pick up on those little things, or whether it's because our public schooling system is severely underfunded at the moment, like that, and they always have been.
I just throw it in there that I majorly failed school.
But the fact is that they probably assume that that's just how he was and that he just didn't want to put in the effort. If that makes sense in some ways, like, because that's how a lot of schools do look at it nowadays. Even back then, when I was in school, even in Australia, it's always looked at as like, oh, they just probably don't want to put in the effort, especially if they're making little spelling mistakes, like putting an A instead of an O, like, you know, like they probably just thought you weren't putting in that effort. They probably didn't actually because did anyone actually explain to any of your schools that you'd never actually been in a public schooling system before? Because surely, as, like, with your parents surely someone should have actually advocated for you and been like, so my child's actually never been in the public schooling system before.
So, my first public school that I went to, and this is why I got screwed over so much, was Mount Maunganui College.
Yeah.
That was 1,500 student school. Now, when I got signed up to there, it was my dad signing me up there. Mum wasn't there.
Yeah.
Dad... I don't think he knew
that you'd actually never been in a public school.
He was dealing with.
Yeah.
I don't think he knew that I hadn't been in a public school, because as far as he knew, I'd been schooled.
Yeah.
I was in school.
But it wasn't
a private
school that
but
anyone
it was still
knew.
A school.
Yeah, he didn't actually realise the full extent of what kind of... And I'm going to say it, and it might not be... People might not like it, but, like, he didn't realise that you were literally just learning brainwashing material.
Yeah.
Because that's all it really is at the end of the day. It was just brainwashing material that you were learning.
Like, my dad's not very educated as it is with the education system or anything like that. He doesn't keep up. Like, I don't think he even knows what the NCA grades are.
Because, in all honesty, with the schools and that, they can't help people if they don't know what they're dealing with.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, my dad... as far as he goes, he puts somebody in school, they fix them.
Yeah.
Like, they deal with that. He doesn't need to tell them anything about
because they should be picking up on all of that.
Well, they should be.
But not really. Not really. Not if your dad's just assumed that your homeschooling did include learning your ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, you know, all of that. Not just sitting there and every answer is because God made us do it, because Jesus made, because, like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm not saying it's bad to have any form of a religious foundation at all. In no way, shape or form.
Well, like we said on the last one, it's okay to be religious in moderation. Yeah,
like, I'm not saying it's bad at all for children to have a religious foundation, and if anything, it's good to for kids to learn that there is more than just life to believe in, if that makes sense. But when it becomes just an overconsumption, and then every answer is just because God did it, because Jesus did it. Like, you know, what's 1 + 1? Jesus. Like, that's not helping anything. That's not educating. That is just brainwashing at the end of the day. And like, it's just kind of insane that this, like, it might have at that time felt like the public school system was failing you, like this was failing you, that was failing you, but at the end of the day it just came back to the fact that there was no clear communication between any of the adults in your life that were responsible for you at that point.
I can't blame the public school system when I never had the foundation to start the public school system.
No, but what I'm saying is that there were adults there, like, so your mum had a responsibility to talk to your dad and let him know, like, hey, like, this was actually the curriculum that we were doing. Like, he might actually need to be catching up on a few things, you know?
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
In her head, we were more educated than the public school system.
Exactly.
That's what she believed.
But that's what I mean.
She genuinely believed that we were more educated than the public school system.
And your dad had a responsibility of care to actually ask your mum what you had been learning, if that makes sense. So, like, at the end of the day, it comes down to them two communicating about something.
Yeah, but
when it comes to your education,
when mum genuinely believes that the schooling system is flawed, and we went through a better schooling system, and we're more educated than those kids, and we're smarter.
But
than
what
those
I'm
kids.
saying is, like, what I'm saying with that is that your dad could have actually looked at some of the work that you had been doing. Does that make sense? Because it would have taken 2 minutes to skim over it and look and be like, oh. Because it took me 2 seconds to skim over some of the curriculum and be like, oh.
But my dad, come on.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, so I know you're saying that, and, like, I like your dad. I actually don't, you know, I don't have, but when you have kids, you have a responsibility, and they let yours and your brother's education fail because they didn't communicate clearly. And if they communicated clearly, the schools could have looked after you. Does that make sense? Like, they could have actually looked after you properly.
My brother got screwed worse than I did. He hit high school, and he was already 2 years deep into high school with no foundation of anything in high school.
And then that's why it's designed. So, like, at that point, yes, the schooling system is designed to make you fail if you haven't had that foundation prior. Because, like, homeschooling can be wonderful, it can be great if it's done properly.
Really work out if it's done properly, but it's not.
But, like, well, the experience that you had wasn't done right.
Done right.
Some other people's experience might have ended up great, but the experience that you had, it didn't work out for you like that. So, like, and then you weren't prepared for the actual real world, which in itself is, it's just, like, I can't actually wrap my head around that sometimes. It's just kind of insane.
There's three main factors there, alright? I missed out on that entire basic childhood of being in primary school and getting the foundation for high school. I had a mother that didn't care about that and wanted to teach me about God and Israel. I had a dad that was too busy chasing alcohol and drugs to worry about what kind of education I was getting anyway. I had no chance.
So I had a question that was here anyway, and I was going to ask you it, but I think you've kind of covered it anyway. Because I was like, were there things other kids just kind of knew that were just completely foreign to you? So besides the education side of things then, just in a social life in general, were there just things that other kids just knew that you had no idea what they were talking about?
Socially, I was screwed. I was completely fucked. I had no idea about anything TV, reality shows, none of that. No idea. No, I didn't grow up on cartoons or any of that, so I had nothing there.
So even just the latest songs, like, on the radio and stuff
I didn't know any of the singers, didn't know any fashion, nothing. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know how to look after myself. I didn't...
Yeah.
I got into school and I couldn't bond with any kids because there was nothing there. All these kids were sitting there and they're like, yeah, we're playing the latest game on PlayStation 2. And I'm like, what's a PlayStation 2?
So, with that then, did the other kids kind of pick up that you were different? Like, could they tell from the beginning? And was it almost like a big neon flashing sign over your head, almost walking around like, I am different, please pick on me?
100%. I had everyone picking on me from the year 9s to the year 13s. Yeah. I got beat up, I got fucking bullied, like...
So, going from that then, what was it like navigating the teenage life in general after coming out from that religious group? So, like, from being, like, not only just in school itself, but, like, outside of school, like, you know, what was it like trying to navigate a teenage life after everything you've ever known was evil, you know, basically, that you're living in right now? You're living in the evil. Did you still have that complex at that time? Did you still think that, like, this is evil, this is evil, this is evil? Or did you kind of just succumb to be like, oh, this is, like, actually quite bad, like, this isn't actually quite bad, I can kind of deal with the real world?
At that point in my life, from about 12 years old, when my whole family and the rug got pulled out again, I went on to autopilot. I was basically, what's that word when you're just back in yourself, just watching yourself do stuff, like depersonalized. I was basically depersonalized for about the next few years. Like, I was on autopilot. I had no control over what I was doing. I just kind of went with anything and everything because I didn't know anything. I didn't know any better. I went into depression when Mum left and Mum and Dad split up. I went into a massive depression. I didn't actually realize it at the time because I didn't know what depression was. No one ever talked about mental health or anything. But I went into massive depression. And from that, I think I just kind of depersonalized and just went with everything. Talking about a social life outside of school, I had no friends. I had my brother, but he had his friends because he actually made friends. Like I said, he had a vastly different experience to me. He actually had friends. He actually had people hanging around. And I kind of didn't. So there was people in and out of our house that were kids that my dad was hanging around, and I hung out with them, but there's no connection there because there's nothing to connect. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But, like, so looking back now, do you feel like your teenage years, right, were at least a bit more normal than your childhood years?
So my teenage years normalized out and started actually feeling normal from about 15 years old. So if we're skipping ahead to about 15, I'm in the third high school because I was in Mount Maunganui College to start with. My dad moved. So at the end of Mount Maunganui College, I just started settling in. I just started making a few friends, and then we moved. And there goes all of that. Nothing. So I started in another high school, started trying to make friends again, and it was a bit more easier that time because it was the second time around, and I'd done it the first time around, so I got used to it. I remember my first 2 weeks there, I sat on a bench in the middle of the school every recess, just sitting on a bench by myself, basically staring at the ground, the whole lunch break, whole morning tea break, I'd just sit there. Eventually I made a couple of friends and I hung out with them. And some people felt sorry for me, so they sort of took me under their wing and sort of hung out with me a bit. But everybody knew I was weird still. This is second year of high school.
So at this point, are you having a relationship with your mum and your dad at this point, or just your dad?
At this point, I can't remember where Mum was. So, oh no, that's right. So Mum was still travelling around. She went in a gypsy little fucking fairy tale world and was wandering the country.
Were you in contact with her in any way?
Yeah, so kind of. She was around every now and again. So during that first year, what I didn't mention, but that goes into the other side of the story with my dad and my brother. And my brother left. My brother left before I was in that second high school.
Yeah.
So from that first high school, a whole lot of shit went down. My brother moved back in with my mum and out of my dad's house. And there goes that rug again. So that was the last person that I had that I grew up with. So now I'm just by myself in this world that I don't know. And I went to the second high school and that shit went down about third term. I'd settled in, I'd made some friends. I'd started normalizing again, getting life again, and my dad went, "We're moving." At this point, my little brother's born. So my dad's got another partner.
Not gonna name him because he's a teenager, and you know what they're like. he'll be like,
sue me.
ooh.
He'll sue me or bash me.
Yeah, he'll try and bash him.
I love my little brother. I help look after him. Anyway, he was born then, and we moved into the hood, right into the fucking hood. It was out West Huntley. And I went to Huntley College. And that was a good school. I enjoyed that school. I actually got along with a lot of people there. I didn't get along with a lot of people, but I got along with a lot of people as well, because there was a lot of weird people there. So we got along. And that was when I actually really started feeling normal, like an actual human being. Maybe it was because the kids there came from broken homes and was deprived, and I felt like I got along with them because of that. But still, outside of school, I didn't have a life. I didn't have friends. I stayed at home and laid on the couch all weekend watching TV because there was nothing. All my mates were out at parties and throwing their parties and shit. And I didn't get invites. I didn't get to go. I didn't have anything outside of school. And yeah, so but this whole time is all along my dad's story and his story, which I might do in another video later on. That all ties in with that.
So we're gonna move forward just a little bit then. So we'll finish your teen years there, and we'll go into so we're not so much finishing your teen years, but we'll fast forward to about 17 years old now. Because that was about 15 years old. And now we're going to go skip forward another 2 years and go to about 17 years old. What do you remember about being 17?
Horrid year. Terrible. Hated it. Absolutely shit. So 17. I don't entirely know what happened there. So, at this point, I was going to Mum's every holidays. We would hang out every holidays. She's married. She's had another kid. So now I have a little brother and a little sister.
Your little brother to your dad and your little sister to your mum? Different,
yes.
But different other parent. It's like your little brother.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Your little brother has a different...
So my little brother has a different mum.
And your little sister has a different dad.
Right, we'll go with that. As far as I know.
Yeah.
So, at this point, my mum's married. I was at a wedding. It was terrible. Horrid wedding. Well, it was okay. There was a whole sheep on a spit, and that was great. I used to just walk up to it and just slice a chunk of meat off. Fuck up with that song. Why would you sing about slaves at a fucking wedding? White people, you can't
take them anywhere.
Anything. Okay, so
It's better than hearing
my
"Come on, Eileen."
mum marries. So this is all about between like 15 to 17. Mum gets married. She gets married to a really rancid alcoholic guy. He cleans himself up. She has another kid. My dad and my mum are hanging out at this point as well, all through this. Sleeping together and stuff behind her husband's back, and whoever else she was sleeping with. And
Just pause for a second there. How did that make you feel with such a strict upbringing? Like,
I'm still on autopilot at this point.
yeah,
A lot of it.
with such a strict upbringing, though, surely you would have been like, "What the heck is going on?"
At this point, it was kind of normalized for me.
So that helped shape your view on what a healthy relationship was, so to speak.
I didn't know what a healthy relationship was.
You just knew that people get together and they cheat on each other.
I watched my mum and my dad get back together. I watched them cheat on each other. I watched my dad get with the next woman and cheat on her. I watched my mum get with the next guy and sleep with the entire town. I watched my dad get with another woman and cheat on her. And I know about this the whole time because my parents bring me in on this and they tell me that they're doing this and they tell me that I've got to keep it a secret. So they make it my problem as well. Because my parents' philosophy is don't hide things from their kids. But they'll hide things from their partners. But they just dragged me in on all of it, and I just had to know about everything that was going on there. And so 17, things spiraled out of control at my dad's.
And did you move into your mum's at this point?
So during this whole time, so about 15 to 17, while all of that was happening, I'd gotten close again with some members of my family, some of my cousins and stuff. I had gotten really close with one of my cousins. He was helping me out a lot. My brother was living with him at Chosen Valley Camp. So I got to go hang out at Chosen Valley Camp, and it's a Christian environment, so it's kind of familiar to me. So I hung out there with my brother and him. I start going to the camp and just hanging out with him. And I mean, it was like a break away from all of the shit that my family was doing. The drugs, the alcohol, the cheating, the lies, everything like that. It was okay to go to the camp and just hang out with people. Some people my own age, older, young, whatever, they were all there. It was just a Christian camp. Like, it's a great camp. It was amazing at the time. Like, I went in, so I started going to that camp in the holidays and doing holiday camps there as well, obviously. I was leader and whatnot. And, so my cousin, he was the one that moved me out of my dad's when everything went wrong.
Yeah, and we'll touch more on that.
We'll touch more on that later on. My cousin is a very strict Christian guy, but I get along with him really well. I love the guy. He was amazing. He helped me through so much. He was a lot of stability there.
Great cook.
Amazing cook. Amazing cook. His pancakes. Anyway, when he turned up to pick me up from my dad's, this Christian-ass guy turned up to pick me up from my dad's to move me into my mum's because my dad didn't want to be there and my mum didn't want to be around my dad at this time. Fuck to find out why. Anyway, he turns up there. He walks in the door. There's dirty nappies on the floor from my little brother. There's broken stuff everywhere. And picture a South-looking crack house. I was in it.
And he helps you move out.
And he helps me move out, move to my mum's. And then I start another school. It was the last high school I was in. I was there for about 6 months. And then my mum encouraged me strongly to find a job and a house and move out. So my mum encouraged me strongly to find a job, move out, help me find a job, help me get a house 2 hours away, and then poof, out you go. Goodbye. Be out on the world by yourself.
Specifically, a farming job. Knowing his background was in a farming.
I wanted to be a mechanic, but that's a story for another time. So no, both of my parents refused to teach me to drive. At this point, I'm 17. I'm moving out of home. No car, no license. I didn't even know what tax was in a job because my parents didn't want to teach me anything. So I move out. I move into farming, a farm job that was 3 weeks on, 3 days off or something. I can't remember if it was 2 days off, 3 days off.
So essentially, you reconnected with your mum, and you're basically getting straight out again.
Yep. She can't handle having kids. Drops them off at any point. Goodbye.
So with that, with that, right? And like, I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit here, but with you getting basically left on your own at that point, did it make you start just seeking people? Just like, it didn't matter, like just trying to get people to be around and stuff?
No. So I didn't understand people. I didn't understand how, because of my whole teenage years, any friends that I made weren't my friends outside of school. I didn't hang out with people outside of school or anything like that. So I had an environment where I hung out with people, and the rest of my life where there was no one else there that I hung out with. I was just by myself. So I was used to being alone. I didn't like letting people in close because of, well, the rug constantly getting pulled. So trust issues. Everyone's going to leave. Don't let people in close. I kept my childhood to myself because anyone that I let in close to talk about sort of thing usually picked on me for it. So I kept all of that to myself. I basically just stuck to myself at that point. Like, I didn't want people around me because I couldn't connect with people. I sort of just, I've always been a loner. So, minimal friends. I had some friends that I was in contact with from high school, but we didn't hang out. We didn't stay in contact. Like, it's, yeah, I didn't.
So, this one's going to be a very leading question for you. Okay.
Okay.
If we're going to go forward from, say, 17 now to, say, like, your 20s, okay, your early 20s, like, maybe 19 to 20, in all honesty, to 21-ish kind of thing. And then even up to maybe 25. Were you gullible to a lot of things around you, kind of thing?
Very much so.
And would you say that it kind of showed in the people that you were attracting around you?
Yes. So there was still that whole thing of, I had a giant neon sign flashing above my head that I'm weird, I'm different, something's not right about you. So to put it into perspective, on that first job that I was working on, I got severely bullied by the manager. He knew I was different. he knew he could pick on me. I didn't know any different workplace, I didn't know what to do if somebody was picking on you in the workplace. I didn't know that. It was my first job. I didn't know that was a bad thing. I didn't know any different because all through high school I was severely bullied. So I didn't know that the manager bullying me was a bad thing.
So, what about when you did start making friends? Would you say, looking back now, that
some of them I should have shot them with the gun that I had?
they probably, you're probably more gullible and more almost have a soft spot for people, like they could change kind of thing because of your upbringing.
Yeah, so...
Like, there's always a good side to them, no matter how bad they could be.
So, I always...
And did that put you into situations where you were taken advantage of personally?
Yes, so... While all of this was happening in my teenage years, my mother was making friends with people that were broken or weird or drugged out, drunks, homeless. She would befriend people like that and try to fix them. And she still does it to this day.
Did that have a leading effect on you?
Yes, so I would watch that. And because my parents were my only role models, I looked at that like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. So I was making friends with the same sort of people and trying to help people all the time, try to fix people, or like I would look at somebody and be like, oh, you just need a friend, not knowing that all they want is glass barbecue. Like, I made a friend that he would go mental if he didn't have a cone, and I'd spend all my money just trying to get him his next bit of weed, and yeah, stuff like that. And it does take a mental toll. Like,
because like this is all part of shaping of how you were after you left this cult. That's why we're touching so much on a lot of this today, if that makes sense. And like, on the flip side of that, do you think now you would have been so trusting of, say, like, do you think now if you hadn't had that foundation that you did, would you have been so willing to pay for someone's marijuana fix?
oh, hell no.
Would you, like, yeah. And like, even when we started dating, does that make sense? Like, can you elaborate on the type of person that you had that was living with you at that point? Because in all honesty, to me, it was a situation that you were getting taken advantage of in.
Extremely much so.
And you didn't want to hurt anyone at all, because by telling people that they needed to leave firmly, like, there were even situations like, and like, this is going to help you answer some of this, because I know that you need a lot of context to answer things, or sometimes like just even little things like, we were a couple and we were sleeping on a mattress in a lounge room. We had a bedroom, but we were sleeping in the lounge room because it made your house guest feel more comfortable, because she was sleeping in the lounge room. Like, just little things like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean.
And like, even when we were first together, you know, like, you're the person that was meant to be just a house guest, or even just a friend. Does that make sense? She'd ask you for like massages and like a kiss on the head. Your girl didn't lose it.
You know who the fuck you are.
I didn't lose it. Just little things like that, though.
So-
And you were very much the peacekeeper, so to speak. Does that make sense? And, like, would you have been so willing to let someone like that in your house and be such a peacekeeper if you didn't have that foundation?
I would have told it to F off and go kill itself.
We don't promote that.
We don't promote that. That was just a contextual thing.
Because
You
in
knew
all
how you would do
honesty,
the same.
it was
But-
a very...
Okay, so the way I was raised
Yeah.
through my childhood was I was raised as a very empathetic person, and that because I was raised in that Christian environment where everyone can be saved and everyone has a good side, it led on through those years, and it took a long time of me getting taken advantage of before I realized that just not everyone can be saved and some people actually have psychological issues. But because the perfect storm is you grow up in that environment as a kid where psychological issues don't exist. If somebody's got a psychological issue, it's
God
not
can
a
save them.
well, it's not a psychological issue. You're possessed. You've got a demon
it's from
in
the
you.
demon and God needs to save you.
It's from the devil and God needs to save you, but you still don't call it a psychological issue. During my teenage years, I didn't. Again, it's something that you learn is in your primary school years that these psychological issues exist. During my teenage years, no one talks about it. My dad doesn't believe that these things exist. I heard rumors of ADHD and autism and stuff like that, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about it.
But
I didn't learn about any of that stuff. I didn't know about mental disorders or any of that sort of thing. So I had my adult years without any of this knowledge. And if somebody was broken to me, they just needed a little bit of love.
obviously, because that's
or,
all
like,
that's all
help.
you knew.
And that's all I knew. So I had my adult years, and psychological disorders exist.
And, like, it would always seem like I was being kind of harsh and that sometimes and that. But, like, that's why I was always looking at you like, we need to do something, you know, like...
Yeah, but to me,
Yeah.
I had never had... Well, I had... So I had in my first few years of when I was living by myself,
Yeah.
I
You
had
girlfriends.
well, no, I had a lot of people online that I'd talk to, online only.
Yeah.
I didn't know them face to face. These were people on the other side of the world. They would take advantage of me a lot. Some of these people, here's an example, okay? I had a random person I was talking to. I never saw their face. I talked to them for all of a day, and I was a very lonely person. I wanted friends, but I didn't know how to make friends, so I tried to make friends online a lot. One of these people was like, "Oh, I'll be your friend. Can you top my phone up?"
Yeah, I remember you telling me this.
I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll top your phone up if you're going to be my friend and you're going to talk to me." They were like, "Oh, yeah, okay, let's go. Yeah, I'll do that." So I topped their phone up. Half an hour later, they messaged me and go, "Oh, that top up didn't go through." And I went, "Oh, what happened there?" They went, "I don't know, it didn't go through, I didn't get it." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try again," and top their phone up again. This happened about 4 times in a day before I finally realised that, oh, this person's actually just lying to me. I didn't realise how easily people could lie to me. I did not realise this. I didn't realise how easily my parents could lie to me. I didn't realise how easily people close to me could lie to me. To this day, I still don't pick up on it a lot. And I'm still very gullible to that sort of thing. I had a lot of people when I was sort of 18 to 21 that I was talking to. Like, one person, she would say, she would just randomly message me, I don't know who this person was, and talk to me for a little bit, and then talk to me about how she wants to kill herself. And then she'd go quiet, and I'd sit there and be like, did she actually kill herself? And I'd be terrified for a little bit, and then she'd start talking to me again, and then oh, I'm depressed, I'm going to kill myself. And me thinking that she's sitting there crying in the corner with a knife on her wrist. Because to me, somebody wouldn't lie like that. To me, when I was sitting in the corner with a knife on my wrist, I wasn't messaging anyone because nobody gave a shit. But when you do reach out like that, somebody might talk to you about that. But I didn't click on that somebody would actually lie about that sort of thing. So to me, when I had that person in my house at the age of 25, I wanted it to leave. I only invited it around for a day or two.
Mm.
So this was one of the worst cases I had in my life of somebody taking advantage of me. This was somebody I met online, and I was like, cool, I have another friend. Do you want to come over to my house and hang out? Just as friends. I wasn't looking for anything sexual or anything like that. I just wanted a friend. I was very lonely at this time. I invited her over for a day. She didn't want to leave, so I was like, cool, I'll stay the night, whatever, you can have that bed over there. Next day, she wouldn't leave. She didn't want to go home. So I was like, you know, what's going on? What's wrong with you, kind of thing. And then I was like, I'll go drop you off at your house. And she went, no, I don't want to go home. I'm very depressed. I'll go to that dark place. I'm scared of what would happen if I go to that dark place. So I was like, okay, this person, like, needs help, needs love, friendship, like, she'll come right. 5 years later, the person's still in my house going, I'll kill myself if you make me leave. Like, that was terrifying. She was a terrifying person. But I was always scared of hurting people's feelings. I was terrified of hurting people's feelings. To this day, I'm still scared of hurting people's feelings. Like, I'm very empathetic and I hate hurting people's feelings. But that was the problem with her, was I was scared of hurting her feelings. Yeah. I was scared of what she would do if I...
But then again, it all just comes back to your foundation.
But it all comes back to that, and that I couldn't see that she was just broken.
So, has therapy helped you?
Therapy helped me a lot.
Access a lot of this?
I started therapy this year due to other issues as well. And it's kind of made me realise that a lot of things that happened in my life, such as that person living in my house, other people that I had come through, just wasn't normal.
And, like, what's it been unpacking it all, like, now, knowing that you're turning 31 this year? Like, is it almost like a freeing thing, considering that no one else in your family, like, that has gone through something like this has been brave enough to do anything like that?
It's freeing. It's also, it's really emotional for me.
Yeah.
This is extremely emotional for me because I feel like my entire childhood, my teenage years, it was all stolen from me. I didn't have a normal childhood. I didn't have normal teenage years. And it led into my adult life not being normal.
Yeah.
Up until about 5 years ago, I feel like I had nothing. I was lost. Like, I was extremely lost. I think the one thing that actually helped me a lot was getting the Skyline. That was a grounding point for me because it was going back to where I wanted to be when I was a teenager. And when I was a teenager, I didn't know Skylines existed, so I don't know how that works, but it works.
Even after that, though, like, we've together, you know, we've done so many things that you probably wouldn't have even thought of that would be you could have done if you were still in that kind of environment. Like, does that mean, like, we've gone to different countries, you know, like,
yeah,
we've traveled around the North Island, but, like, not like how you did as a child, you know, like, we've travelled around the Central North Island and stuff like that, you know, like we've done so many things, even just going away for the night and stuff. It's just like and just heading out to a restaurant or like staying in a hotel and stuff like that, you know, like
So
done so many things to help that like are helping almost, because like you wouldn't have never thought that you would have gotten on an airplane or even just had a passport in your hand, like, if that makes sense.
I spent from about 16, I wanted to travel to different countries and stuff. But I feel like in the last sort of 8 years almost, I guess, my mind's almost been freed and opened up to actually like a level of a normal person. Like, looking back,
I'd like to say I helped with that, but also
it was my car.
I'd like to say I'd help with that.
It was my car.
But also, your friend.
Yeah, I could give a good shout out to my mate. Having him there was really grounding in my life as well. He was the first like actual friend that I had.
Yeah.
Like, so when I was in high school, I had maybe 2 friends that were my absolute best friends through high school. I stayed in contact with them after high school, but we didn't really hang out much. So during high school, I had 2 really good friends, and they kind of helped normalize me a lot. I lost contact with them for a few years, and then we came back to being friends again. And that stupid bitch cost me my friendship with one of them, but that was also my own fault. I didn't know. I still have a lot of trouble socializing. A lot of trouble socializing. Like, I don't know how to socialize with people. I can't imagine what it's like to just go to a pub and talk to people, have a beer and talk to people. Like, I have one good friend, but I still have trouble just being friends. Like, just knowing someone and being friends with them. I don't know how to do that properly.
And then you've had a functional relationship.
Semi-functional. You put up with me and I fuck you over. And you hate me for it, but that's cool. I had maybe one other semi-functional relationship, and because of the foundation with my only role models and how they treated their relationships, I didn't know how to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
I still have trouble with that.
So with that, while you're dwelling on that part, what have you had to unlearn in order to feel like you are now, like yourself now? What have you actually had to physically be like, oh no, I can't do that? Like, unlearn almost, like that you've naturally been taught. So basically, you've had to unlearn everything that you're taught from like an education standpoint, but also you had to unlearn social cues. You had to unlearn like just basically everything that a normal person would know.
So I had to...
A lot of strong political views, even. Very strong points.
I didn't have political views.
Well, technically you did, because I
didn't know I had political views.
Like,
okay.
Being like Israel is a political view.
Yeah. So when I was in high school... Okay, so going back 8 years...
yeah.
Maybe to when I was 19, 20. I didn't know how the political system in our country worked. I didn't know you vote in a party, one person stands up, and then you have... Was it Prime Minister? I didn't know how that worked. I didn't know how to vote. I didn't know what voting did. I didn't know about local councils. Didn't know taxes. Didn't know how a company worked. I didn't know how to find out any information about anything. So, look at it this way. If I wanted to... How do I put this? I didn't know what opportunities were there for me. So, like I know I've mentioned this to you before. When I was in high school and they went, what do you want to do for a career? I didn't know what a career was.
Yeah.
They explained it to me. It's your job path. It's where you go to work. Like, you climb the ladder. You climb the corporate ladder. I didn't know what a corporate ladder was. So, I didn't know that if I worked hard in school and did all my schoolwork, I could have had a decent paying job. I got taught from both of my parents that school does nothing for you. You don't go anywhere. Qualifications doesn't mean anything. It's just a piece of paper. Throw it out the window and carry on.
But you've been able to unlearn all of that.
I've had to unlearn all of that. And that's why I'm sitting there looking at it now going, fuck, I could have actually been somewhere in the world.
That's why you started, that's why you were recently, doing coursework?
That's why I'm starting coursework now and, like, learning to get my qualifications so I can maybe be somewhere before I die.
And, like, even just picking up random hobbies and stuff, like photography, stuff like that.
So I picked up a camera and started photography, and then I got obsessed with cameras, and now I have a whole bunch of cameras.
But even just the other aspect of it, because, like, you know how you spent your whole time so estranged almost from your family, even just now, like, us, what, like, because you can elaborate on what we've been doing with that.
So I spent my whole time estranged from my family, but I knew my grandparents. I know my immediate cousins.
On both sides? Yes.
No.
Why?
I know my uncles and aunties. I know my cousins. I know my grandparents on my mum's. This is all on my mum's side. My dad's side's a whole different story that we'll cover another time. But I do know aunties and uncles on that side as well, and cousins. But that all circles around to my dad's side, which I'll probably do videos on because that's a very interesting topic to cover as well. But... So that whole genealogy thing, we'll go into that side of the videos when we do all of my dad's side.
But that's what you've been looking into now as well, because you spent so long estranged from your family.
I spent a lot of time estranged from my family.
Now you get to see, like, the whole broader side of, like, your family, if that makes sense.
So we dug into genealogy to find out
where you came from, who you are.
Because of how my entire life went, I got to about last year and I sat there and I went, who the hell am I? I don't understand myself. I don't understand the world around me. I don't understand where my family came from. Yeah, you made me feel lost. Thanks. I don't understand the world around me. I don't understand where I am. I don't understand anything. Like, I started to understand the world and my place in it, but at the same time I don't. And it's a lot of realization to me that all these years I've learned absolutely nothing because everyone around me led me astray, led me to, like, this, that, and the other, but to everything that I didn't need to know and I didn't want to know. Like, I didn't want to know what it was like to grow up in a crack house. Like, I didn't want to know what it was like to have to hide the weed plants because the cops are knocking on the front door. But, like, I knew that stuff. I knew how to set up a hydroponic system, but I didn't know how to do my taxes if I started my own business.
So, in saying all of that then, what would you say to either 10-year-old you or just another kid going through something similar, like they're about to leave a high control religious environment, like today's their last day there, they're leaving tonight or tomorrow or whatever, what would you say to that kid? What would you say to you, knowing what you know now?
I hope that no other kid goes into the perfect storm that I did when they leave that, and I hope that they actually have a normal world to go into.
And that it's good that there are services out there that can
And
actually help people.
Well, that there are actually services there, because I never
It's
knew
so
that.
unfortunate that there has to be services out there, though. That's the unfortunate.
That's the worst part about it, is that there actually has to be services out there.
Because there is enough people affected by it.
But I hope that they know about it as well.
Yeah. And
Because
that it's made accessible to them almost.
it was only this year, well, it's only in the last few weeks that I actually found out that the Olive Network exists.
And that's why, even just like, because you're talking about this with your therapist today, because they all know that you're in therapy, and you just had a meeting today with your therapist.
Yeah.
And like, even she was saying, like, this is a really good way to heal for you, but also to let other people know that, you know, you're not the only one going through it. Like, there are other people, and there are stories out there that
is a big thing for me, because to me, I don't know anyone else that has been through what I've been through.
But then there's a whole network out there of people that apparently have.
There are people that have gone through it.
There is.
You're not the only ones.
There is a critic space, and I will be tagging it in this description as well, because it's also about escaping the curriculum that he was in, but it is particularly about the community that he was in. And it's an opinion piece written by someone completely different that we actually have no connection with. But it's a very interesting read if you did want to actually take a look in that. And a lot of what he has been saying has actually been confirmed in that opinion piece as well. And it's just kind of worrying, almost worrying as well. But it was kind of healing that. It's like, oh, I'm not the only one that thought of it like this, like, you know, especially after being almost gaslit, like, no, that was a normal childhood, you're fine, you know.
To me, it's hard to wrap my head around you having a normal childhood.
Yeah.
Like, you had friends, you went to primary school, like,
yeah, but then, like,
you had a normal family growing up, well, as normal as it gets.
But then there was, like...
But to me, my childhood was normal because that's what I experienced.
And then you see someone writing a whole opinion piece and they're like, this actually this isn't normal. And then it kind of helps validate for you, though, as well, after getting gaslit for so long, like okay, so this isn't normal. Thank you. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and I am going to plug that in this description, because I do think that it's an opinion piece that does need to be read by people.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing about growing up the way I did, is that I thought it was normal, and I thought it was what normal people went through, and I thought it was how normal people acted. It's not. It's really not.
So, I think that we're going to leave it here for now.
Yeah.
And so, thank you, guys, for listening to this part of our journey. It was long, and it may sound...
I'm probably going to split this into two.
No, we're going to keep this whole. We're going to keep it whole.
An hour and a half.
We're going to keep it whole.
Okay.
It's a long... This one is a long part, but it's because this part of his journey is actually still unfolding right up until the present time today. Like, this is a long piece, because this is how this is what happens when you leave groups like this. Like, it's not suddenly like, oh yeah, I've left, it's fine now, everything's better. Like, this is still really affecting him right up until today, present time. He's 31 now. He left that place when he was 10.
Hey, I'm 30.
You're 31 this year, though. That's 21 years ago that you left that place, and it still deeply affects you to this day in your adult life. That's 21 whole years that it's still been affecting you. And it's just really good for other people to know that
Yeah.
It's not in your head. Like, it's not in your head. This is real and it is really happening. That's why it's so long. But that's why. Thank you so much for listening. Leaving that kind of life obviously doesn't mean that it's over, as we said. It just meant a new kind of confusion began, and that he and so many other people have to go through. So if this brought up anything for you, or if you're walking a similar path right now, like I've said multiple times throughout this video, we have linked some support in the description through the Olive Leaf Network. You have to click on the link, go through their page, and get in contact with them through that way. Next time, it'll be about life in the community and the years that he spent in there. It's about 4 to 5 years worth of what he can remember, and remembering about Survivor's Block, and that it may seem muddled as well, just like this one seemed a bit muddled, but it's solely because of this is coming from his words and his memory of what happened, and that's just how it has to be. So obvious, that's what I was saying, this part has taken the longest to talk about, but it's the hardest to come to terms with as well, realizing a lot of this stuff actually did happen. So yeah, that episode that we're going to be doing next is going to be called During the Cult. We're going to be dropping it hopefully within a day after you guys see this video. But until then, take care. Ciao for now.